This is Melanintelligence, episode 5. We're looking at Cartels, Terrorists, Histories, Refugees, and Security, Part 2.
It's so elegant. He spoke third power style, high intelligence. A young man handled the game like Maryland, 3 a.m. breathing. Leaning in gates, I mean creaming. Selling these cakes and slabs like Lambo Lakes, fiends beaming, steaming, associated with names and demons. All about reasons, the the gate blue in the year. Sort of like timeshare with crime, sort of like a shot, yeah.
All right, so this is part 2 of a work that I began, and I think I wrote it originally in 2017. And I wrote it for a online rag I was working for back then. I was submitting editorials to, and and then I raised some critical questions that are coming back around with the Capitol upheaval, the transition into our new administration, and the like. And I just wanted to revisit some earlier situations and just bring them forward to the current moment so that we can deal with them with an enhanced vision and also with some 2020 hindsight and hopefully some strategic planning and grand design so that we can all step into a better future, more secure future and more abundant future. I think that's what we're all going for. Regardless of what the situation is now, we want more security and more abundance for our young people. And how do we share security? How do we expand safe spaces? And how do we cultivate abundance? How do we start operating from a standpoint of assets versus lack? Is your assessment of yourself based on your assessment of your assets? What do I have? Or is it based on your lack? What don't I have? You know, are you asking, what am I doing? Or are you asking, what are my bills? They're both very, very important questions. Depending on where you start off, has to do directly with your confidence and your association with power. You know, a man must pay his debts, but a man must know himself before he is even a man. So yeah, we're just operating on this right quick, and thank you for taking the time to rock with me and to listen in and all that. And here we are: Cartels, Terrorists, Histories, Refugees, and Security, Part 2. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deed should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God. That's John chapter 3, verses 20 and 21. Amen. The breach of the Capitol on January 6 was political theater used by President Trump to leverage the new administration to properly secure himself and his family against possible attack by Russian, Iranian, and American parties. I know it's a bit much, and it sounds a lot of far-fetched, but seriously, walk with me for a minute. All right. What? Yeah, seriously. And so the first section is called Russian POTUS. Louis Freeh, former head of the FBI, former head of the FBI, openly accused then President Donald Trump of Russian collusion in 2018 and committed millions of dollars to investigation and prosecution. The FBI prosecution failed at conviction, but the fact that our country's most powerful investigative agency would turn its lens on our own executive branch in this manner was unnerving to all Americans. To our collective dismay, the commander-in-chief was accused of being a willing installation into the presidency by Russian intelligence. Still today, the very accusation seems like something out of a spy movie. To me, the idea of a Russian POTUS had to have some merit. You know, my specialization is Middle Eastern history and politics and culture, Arabic language and things. And so I'm very much into how what goes on here affects what goes on in the Middle East, and what goes on in the Middle East affects what goes on here outside of, the barrels of oil and whatnot. But very much engaged and involved in the barrels of oil and whatnot. And so moving on. Mm, 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 mm. To me, the idea of a Russian POTUS had to have some merit. Our intelligence agencies wouldn't publicly render so fantastic an attack on the presidency unless they more to gain by embarrassingly divulging his foreign agency than by discreetly keeping it secret. For the president of the United States of America to be accused by his own people of being a Russian op exposed our unintelligence community's ineptitudes. We all asked, if this is true, how come the CIA or the FBI or the DOD didn't stop it before it got stateside? This needs to be asked again. If this is true, how come the CIA or the FBI or the DOD didn't stop it before it got stateside? The Alphabet Boys' permanent embarrassment paled in comparison to the possible damage that the Russian POTUS could do without the most extreme measure of public and private accountability and oversight. Hence, Trump's first impeachment. The Russian POTUS had to be outed even if he could not be convicted. And so, at that level, it's chess, not checkers, right? And so they know, he might got 4 years, but how do they make sure they got the ability to check him on certain things in the long run? They out him in his first year. Even if it's embarrassing to them. As embarrassing to them as it is, even now. That's embarrassing to all of us. America. Yeah. You didn't elect that guy. We wouldn't. He was, we did, but we're us and then them. All right, so the next section is called Between an Op and a Hard Place. Considering that President Trump was the Russian POTUS, I began to pity him. I just imagine what it would be like for him to have been a product of the most ingenious intelligence plan ever, only to have been found out. Still, he won the trial of his life, going on to play out his administration as a tycoon bull in a statesman's china shop. All the while, President Trump knew that either the Americans or the Russians were going to have to answer all of the unanswered questions brought up in his first impeachment hearings one way or another, sooner or later. It may seem weird, but I, the good American vigilant citizen, pitied the belligerent, non-penitent, not guilty does not mean innocent, white nationalist militant, Russian invested American president. It would just seem like an impossible situation being trapped between puppeteering Putin and our investigating American intelligence community. Once the president was put under investigation for collusion, in essence, he had no wins because neither Russian nor American intelligence have short memories, nor do they take losses without repercussions, be they public or private. As the Russian POTUS, President Trump endangered the lives not only of every American citizen, but specifically his own and his family's. The next section is called the Persian issue. Persian meaning Iranian, but Iran occupies space that was once the grander Persian Empire, and the language Farsi means Persian, right? Parsi, Persian. So the Persian issue, Persian connection. My view of Trump as Russian POTUS wasn't solely a result of Louis Freeh's accusation. As I wrote in 2017's Cartels, Terrorist Histories, Refugees, and Security, Part 1, the travel ban, Trump's travel ban, wasn't a Muslim ban so much as it was a ban on the Muslim countries in which the American military apparatus has been carrying out covert operations over the last 2 decades. I further intimated that the Israelis originally modeled the Muslim ban because the countries sanctioned in the travel ban list had restricted travel with the state of Israel. As far as Russian POTUS mandate, the travel ban not only alienated our Middle Eastern allies for the Russians, it also was to ensure against black op blowback. The United States has always had to do the dance of unequivocally supporting the post-Holocaust resettlement project while placating Arab nations' hopes and demands for a Palestinian state, if only to keep things kosher with OPEC. It's about the oil, right? In certain ways. Stateside, no one can doubt our support for Israel. In the Middle East, Stateside, no one can doubt our support for Israel. In the Middle East, we've to give hope to the possibility of an independent Palestinian state with the shared capital of Jerusalem. Towards this end, we've kept the Israeli embassy in Tel Aviv as diplomatic acknowledgement of the contested status of Jerusalem, at least as a possible capital of a future Palestinian state, if not the current capital of the post-Holocaust resettlement project called the State of Israel. When Trump moved the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, he set off protests in almost every major Middle Eastern capital, alienating American diplomats in the area and straining, if not fracturing, decades of tenuously crafted relationships between the U.S. and our oil-rich allies. This action shifted the balance of power in the Middle East, leading countries to incline diplomatically towards Russia regarding trade and intelligence. Neither America nor Israel benefited from this move, only Russia. Despite diplomatic warnings of strategic fallout, President Trump scuttled Obama's monumental Iran deal, degenerating hopes of peace in the Middle East. Trump further burned our Middle East bridges a year ago with the drone strike assassinations of General Qasem Soleimani, head of Iranian intelligence, and Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, leader of Iraq's militia. Iran responded to the killing of its number 2 man with threats and rocket attacks into Iraq, resulting in relatively minimal damage. The response was understood to be benign, and the American diplomatic corps was put on high alert the world over. No one expected just a rocket attack to be the end-all be-all of Iran's response to the assassination of their head of intelligence. And so when it was just a rocket attack, people were like, what? There's got to be more. And so our diplomatic corps has been on a state of heightened awareness since then. It ain't never been ratcheted down. The political killings of Iran's General Soleimani and Iraq's Mohandas with their entourages sent multiple Eastern nations into Russia's diplomatic pocket. The political killings of Iran's General Soleimani and Iraq's Mohandas with their entourages sent all the Middle Eastern nations into Russia's diplomatic pocket. Again, the United States benefited nil from President Trump's Middle Eastern policy in this regard. In November 2019, in the wake of the Iran deal revocation, President Hassan Rouhani announced discovery of an oil well boasting an estimated 50 billion barrels of crude. Maintenance of the Obama-Iran deal would have ensured American consideration, if not dibs, on this newfound petrol well. With Trump's diplomacy, most get sold to Russia and China or proxies. Go figure. V is for vendetta. The assassination of Qasem Soleimani may have had even more dire consequences. Pardon self. The assassination of Qasem Soleimani may have even more dire consequences for Trump in particular. Reuters reported on January 22nd that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's website carried an image of a golfer resembling President Trump apparently being targeted as a drone. I'll put it up on the screen, but this is a live thing. As a matter of fact, I ain't even gonna show, deathly imagery. You don't need 1,000 words. I got 1,000 right here. You don't need a picture. I got 1,000 words right here. The image first appeared on a Persian language Twitter feed that carried a link to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's website. The Twitter took down the feed on Friday, saying it was fake. For some, this politically threatening media ping is but a joke. In context, some feel that this is a threat that should be taken seriously. The picture was captioned, "Both the murderers and those who ordered it should know that revenge may come at any time." The image showed the forbidding shadow of a drone looming over a lone golfer. Trump, who regularly plays golf, was not named. What? No one really expects really expects Twitter to be a platform for diplomatic tete-a-tete. There's usually back channels and, tables with really, really expensive wood for people to sit around and talk about that. The game changed with, how social media was used in Obama's election, and then how Trump used Twitter to, communicate with different parties. And so now, parties is using Twitter to attack and threaten the POTUS. It's really just a strangeness, absolutely strangeness. Pardon. And so I'm gonna put it in context because the Twitter threat is one thing, but the threat as a whole thing sits into a greater context, a greater arc of political violence in the Middle East regarding presidency and policy over years, especially with Iran and Iraq. And so let's get back to this. Context of Iran and Iraq, right? Because, the Iranian dude was attacked in Iraq with Iraqi entourage. In 1989, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, in 1989, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, Ali Khamenei's predecessor, famously put a $1 million bounty on the head of novelist Salman Rushdie for insulting the Prophet Muhammad in his book Satanic Verses. Rushdie had to live underground with super security until the bounty was rescinded in 1998. He hadn't killed anyone. $1 million on his head for what they considered talking reckless. In October 2011, a U.S. investigation confirmed that then Iraqi President Saddam Hussein sent a team of assassins to Kuwait to kill former President George H. Bush Sr. via a suicide bombing or explosive device during celebrations to mark the Allied victory of the Gulf War. The Kuwaiti government arrested 16 conspirators, including an Iraqi colonel. You can rest assured the Kuwaiti government did their diligence and duty with those parties. All this is to say that given the history of bounty and American presidential assassination attempt in the region, perhaps Trump should take the tweet threat seriously. And so, I think the dude's Russian POTUS. All the same, he's American representative. And so we as a people, we the people, have a responsibility, a social contract with this dude to protect him like he got one with us to protect him. And so, love it or hate it, we can't have people threatening the POTUS. Not because we like Donald Trump, because of what the POTUS is. And I read a whole lot of books from the Middle East. But, I'm, as I would say over there, and Amriki, and Afrikiyun, Amrikiyun. I'm American. I'm an African American. And I'm Muslim. And I'm Muslim. And so, I think that, we have to know who we are and where we stand as a people, in this whole thing, because them people ain't got nothing for us. And if they do, it come with strings that we don't need, and if we're going to talk about reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, we need to be having a conversation with our brothers over there about reparations for the trans-Saharan slave trade, maybe for, people like the Akdam or something like that. But, we'll get into that. But that's just to say, we can be Muslims without being Arabophiles or Persiaphiles or having a politics that makes our allegiances here and abroad dubious. God is greatest, in God we trust. The next section is called The Invaluable Pool of Mar-a-Lago. In December 2020, just prior to Trump's leaving office, a group of Palm Beach residents made an attempt to forbid Trump from returning to his plantation, Mar-a-Lago. He resides there. They've obviously failed. I don't think that they were aware of how horrifying the prospect of not returning to Mar-a-Lago was for the president. Most Americans did not understand that Trump was using Mar-a-Lago as a secure meeting place during the whole of his administration. He wasn't just playing golf all the time, obviously. As a diplomatic watering hole, Mar-a-Lago was pristinely secured by the Secret Service's presidential detail, in addition to whatever private contractors Trump may have had around. Over the last 4 years, securing Mar-a-Lago has become a well-oiled machine that need not even be tweaked as Secret Servicemen are swapped out with well-trained, seasoned civilian contractors. The existing model of top-shelf security just need be cloned and maintained, and our former president is secured against any enemy, foreign or domestic, be they American, Russian, or Iranian. President Biden is poised to lift the COVID crisis travel ban and the Trump-era Muslim ban. The number of foreign agents from any number of countries in the world is sure to increase just by virtue of renewed access. This makes his residence and security in Mar-a-Lago essential post-presidency, especially given the Ayatollah's drone tweet. This is in addition to his collusion accusation trapping him between the CIA and the KGB. This is in addition to his collusion accusation trapping him between the CIA and the KGB. Even so, could he really feel safe there if he is actually guilty of Russian collusion and simply beat the case? How long would our people let him slide? How long would their people let him slide? Would they let the U.S. debrief him? Would they let us debrief him? Would our people seemingly let the Persians get him and just hit them back? Either way, If any or all of that is true, Mar-a-Lago is the safest place for him to be. Again, Mar-a-Lago estate is now invaluable to him. Next section is called Capital Spectacle for Political Leverage. Political power is the ability to control violence. Our voting rights and right to assemble are extensions of this elemental truth. The capital distractivists were not met with compelling force in order to prevent their entree into the halls of Congress. This means that their political action was not an insurrection so much as a licensed protest. We should be careful not to give this macabre political theater an actual democratic institutional life, as I've said before. The Capitol spectacle was the cherry on top of the Russian POTUS op. President Trump has actively alienated our international allies, purposely widened deep fissures in the Middle East, reopened race, class, and gender wounds stateside that it'll take generations to heal. In light of this consideration, I prefer to use the term capital theatrical upheaval for the political convulsion that occurred that day. The revelation that Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio has been an FBI informant for nearly a decade further clarifies and muddies this matter. What was it all for, though? In a previous work, I posited that for the African American body politic, the capital spectacle, the capital upheaval on January 6th was largely a distractivist tantrum, diverting attention from the newly realized African American constituent initiated global political ascendance. I mean, when Trump got elected, they blamed everything on black people. They said, we ain't come out and vote, so Trump got elected. Now the whole world fucked up. That mean the whole world in the hands of black voters. And so now that Stacey Abrams done flipped Georgia, they saying, look, black people helped get Biden and Harris in office. But what they ain't saying is black people run the world. If they choosing who's up there and who's not, just by virtue of staying out or coming home. We ain't even talking about who we choosing to vote for or how we choosing to vote. We talking about if we even get up out of bed on Super Tuesday. It's power. And so, the realization of this power, this electoral power of African Americans is being contrasted and being balanced with the will of white militia. And, how does America balance this is is going to be the conversation of political science and of, young people in the future, seeking to, create, a more perfect union in order to form a more perfect union. All right, moving on. Let's see. In a previous work, I posited that for the African American body politic, the Capitol spectacle on January 6th was largely a distractivist tantrum, diverting attention away from the newly realized African constituent initiated global political ascendance and dominance. Some acts can serve both public and more private interests. The Capitol upheaval did some very telling things. Trump, as Russian POTUS, who had assassinated the head of Iranian intelligence, now has 3 swords hanging over his head. Certain American corporate military elites have wanted him since before he got into office, as Louis Freeh's prosecution proves. The Iranians have wanted him since he assassinated General Soleimani. Now that he lacks executive immunity, if he is the Russian POTUS, they definitely don't want him debriefed. Kamala and Joe know that he's suborned to foreign powers. In the wake of his train wreck administration, it was probably already decided that he'd be left out to dry, seemingly for either the Russians or the Persians, allowing U.S. intelligence to wash their hands of the most embarrassing domestic operation since September 11th. And so the last section is called Peep Game. Coming up on his exit in the lost election, no one was more aware of the Russian, American, and Iranian hanging, swinging swords than the Donald. You know, I'm really into names, right? And it's interesting that President Obama used to call him the Donald because Donaldo means prince of the world. Don mean the prince, like Machiavelli the prince. It's the Don. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Aldo, you know, that means of the world, like the mundo. And so Donaldo means like the king of the world, bro, or the prince of the world, the Don of the world. You know, actually, Prince of This World is an interesting title in biblical context, also, that just occurred to me. But moving on, you know, I mean, when President Obama was calling him the Donald at the White House press dinner, he was, you know, he was joking him, but he was giving him power. What's in the name though? These here United States of Consciousness. All right, so peep game. All right, let's see. Coming up on his exit in the lost election, no one was more aware of the Russian, American, and Iranian hanging swords swinging than the Donald. In addition, in a situation like this, what could he do? How could he gain bargaining power and leverage over the new administration? What could Trump do to gain bargaining power for his life, for his family, with an intelligence community that was no longer beholden to protect him? An intelligence community that really tried to freeze him out the whole of his election. The answer? We have the Capitol spectacle. Trump initiates the Capitol breach under executive oversight, and we, the people, watch in horror. Kamala and Joe contact him via 1877 compromised back channels and ask him what he wants to do to make it stop, what they have to do to make it stop. He says, "You have to righteously secure me and my family from us and them. And we have to be allowed to return to Mar-a-Lago, never mind what the mayor of Palm Springs says." Biden and Kamala agree. The prosecutor VP says, "We're still going to have to impeach you." Trump says, "Okay, Proud Boys, stand down." And here we are. The impeachment proceedings are all theater. They're a farce. And most of the Capitol actors will be pardoned like self-styled Confederate Civil War veterans. What we experienced in the Capitol spectacle was a political power play as violence being asserted over electoral decision. This should not be lost upon any of us. For the smash and grabbers in the Capitol, the U.S. has been elementally rearranged. I'll say that again. For the smashers and grabbers in the Capitol, the United States has been elementally rearranged. The descriptive phrases, America the Beautiful, melting pot, and experiment in democracy have been mutated and denatured into the imperative, experiment, America, in melting the democracy pot. Let's ensure that they cannot melt this here democracy pot. Going forward, may God bless and may we be granted the wisdom to best address these situations on the front end. Because one thing for sure, and also for certain, neither the people who are in the Capitol nor the people outside, the people who support it nor the people who don't, want this situation to be what we hand to our kids, what the young people inherit. So if I felt like I had major grievances that required me to be in the Capitol, it's because I ain't want it like that. And for the people who felt like, and for the people who weren't there, you know, that's definitely not what we want, right? So like, what's the conversation to be had? You know what I mean? So as to form a more perfect union and bridge not only across aisles, but across, all these divisions we got, class, race, party, color, sex, gender, I mean, it's big, bro. Big, big. And so, just this conversation is what we're trying to put forward. And so again, this particular talk paper was just to put the Capitol breach in a context so that we understand it in such a way that it doesn't shape our democracy in a warped fashion that is part of the whole reason he was put in office to begin with. And so if we view the Capitol upheaval as an uncontrolled insurrection, then it means we're going to deal with it from a standpoint of security in a different way. If we view it as a facilitated process, it means we're going to deal with it from a standpoint of security a different way. But if we view it as a facilitated process, dealing with it is just a process of analysis, assessment, and execution. If we deal with it as an uncontrolled process, then we're like, well, what do we do? We spend a whole lot of time, creating scenarios for something that ain't even that scenario. And our attention is diverted from perhaps more pertinent things that we need to be working on as a society. We can't let them people distract us and be like, oh my God, how will we secure the Capitol in the face of what's happened? No, the Capitol's secure. We know that from when they had the NOI up there in the Million Man March. The Capitol's secure, bro. If a million dudes ain't, that's not even real, bro. But it's made to seem real by virtue of the spectacle and the way it's reported on, and also the terminology we're using. We call it an insurrection. It can't be nothing but real because we see insurrections all over the world and they last forever. We call it an upheaval. What? We just unearled a little bit. And now we back at it. See you in the morning with a slight hangover. Let's get it. We got to work on Monday. And so, just deploying different terminology, refining the narrative, and sharing, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of another order, so that we can, in actuality, be operating, on the chessboard, not the checkerboard. If you know anything, can you really checker? Nah. And the rock's the cradle, bro. You got to be playing chess, anticipating, flowing, operating. It's the only respectable thing. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this little stream. Thank you for rocking with me. This is Melanintelligence. This is episode 5. We was talking about, security as it related to the Capitol upheaval. Thank you for your time and your patience. And, I'm really enjoying this different mode. I usually just be writing. Oh, I got to do a shameless plug. I'm Solomon Burnett. I'm the editor-in-chief of Luma Font Scriptorium. That's my imprint right there. And I am the publisher and author of The Sunrise in the West on Ammer African Statecraft. And so this book is about, The Sunrise in the West is a metaphysical political treatise falling under a constellation of divine scholarly, classical, cultural, and oral traditions, charting African American global futures for generations to come. Here we see eclosed the grand unification of Black American fraternal and street organizations under the common ethnic and national identity as Orun, the Yoruba word for heaven and divination, divine nation, horizon, and sunlight, revealed as the proper name of American descendants of slavery and prophetically established African nation state. Orun demystificationist vision shared in The Sunrise in the West is essential for anyone seeking to understand global politics with knowledge of self and a higher purpose in the 21st century. And so this is volume one of my Times of the Sign series called The Sunrise in the West. Times of the Signs trilogy. It's a three-part piece, three-part work. Volume two is called Star Logic, a collection of poesis. Poesis being the Greek word for creation. Star Logic, Times of the Signs, Volume 2 is a poetic return to the concepts of meteor time and orunage, mapped out in Volume 1, The Sunrise in the West, defined as transatlantic fugitivity and repatriation initiated by the fall of heavenly bodies. Star Logic further redefines our era in space, art, and craft using scripture, meteorics, esotericism, tones, and rhythm. This poesis explains our storied past in verse and pictograph, breathlessly bridging gaps between multiple states of being and now. So, this, it's the work on this applying metaphysical principles to African American politics, but it deals with first establishing, links based on traditional intelligences and future intelligences. That's why, the organization is called Orun Society, Orun School, and all that. And so I'm Suleiman Idris, or that's my pen name. Suleiman Idris, Durham, North Carolina, pens for online and academic journals, lecturing in the Middle East, the Caribbean, the United States. Star Logic is his offering of high science. Star Logic is my offering of high science and artistry, and is the second of my Times of the Signs trilogy, tacking between the spiritual, the experiential, and the political. Star Logic is a must-read for lovers of poetry and those navigating unified states of consciousness. And so this my joint. Star Logic is just volume 2 is a collection of lofty poems, dense essays, and primitivist art. It's pretty heavy. A couple of articles in it from Professor Maurice Hines from Cairo, American University in Cairo. It's a really good collection of work, and it's a higher intelligence of another order. We appreciate your work. We appreciate your taking time to rock with us. Volume 3 is going to be called Desk Orientalis. It comes out next month. I'm working on an index for it now, which is like tedious, But yeah, that's what's going on right here. As you can see, it's got all the major seals of the American Islamic schools of thought on it. So, if you're interested in any of that, then this here is the thing for y'all. And if you ain't, it's still the thing for you. Just go through what it go through before it get to you. So again, thank you for your time and patience. We wish peace be upon you and yours, and that all the best knowledge, wisdom, and understanding come to us so we can live the most quiet and peaceable life possible in all righteousness and godliness. Thank y'all so much for listening. This is Melanintelligence, Orun Society. Suleiman Idris. Peace.